All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Jordan Backstrom. I'm with the National Community Stabilization Trust, and we are excited to bring you all these weather resiliency training events in partnership with Smart Home America. These events are meant to provide real estate housing developers and others in the industry with an introduction to fortified construction standards, as well as other tools and information to complete rehabs to standards that better protect homes against weather-related events and increase the resiliency of rehab homes across the country. Today's webinar is going to be focused on incorporating wildfire resistant and high wind resilient standards into rehabs. As mentioned, this is part of a series. We've hosted a handful of these webinars throughout the month of April. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll be posting the content from all of those webinars on our website, ncst.org, and you can look for those in the next week or so to be posted there. With that, I wanted to take a moment to introduce the team from Smart Home America. We're joined by Candace Wheat, Technical Outreach Specialist with Smart Home America. We've also got Brooke Troxmondo, Planning and Policy Specialist at Smart Home America as well. Smart Home America is a nonprofit organization that focuses on the intersections of disaster resiliency, housing, policy, and insurance affordability. We also additionally have Graham Green, Communications Director with Smart Home America as well. Graham's mostly going to be in the background on this webinar, but he'll be answering questions as they're brought up and as they come in. With that, I wanted to highlight the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Feel free to type your questions there anytime as they come up. Again, we've got Graham in the background, so he might answer those just right away in the flow of the presentation and can include some links there as well. We'll also be leaving some time at the end for Q&A as well. And again, we can use that Q&A feature, or at the end, there's the raise hand feature. If you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you and you can ask your question to the panelists as we go. And then finally, we will, as you do leave the webinar at the end of this, there will be a survey that'll pop up right away in your Zoom window. If you're able to complete that survey, we'd love to get that feedback. Let us know how things go for us. That feedback is really valuable for us, and we love seeing those results as they come in. Without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Brooke and Candace. And thank you all again for joining us today. Brooke and Candace, it is all you.
Thank you so much, Jordan, and to NCST for your amazing collaboration throughout this training series. And again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Today in this training, we're going to discuss how beyond code construction, insurance, and community resilience intersect so that you have the tools to make your community stronger before and recover more quickly after natural disasters. So as we get started, let's cover some important facts about home insurance and its impact on community resilience. In the US, about 64% of homes are underinsured by an average of 24%. The average home price in the US is around $400,000, and so 24% of that is $96,000. Most people don't have that kind of capital sitting in their bank accounts to make up that difference. So with a deficit of almost $100,000, it makes it incredibly difficult for underinsured households to come back after a natural disaster. Even worse, about 75% of businesses are underinsured by an average of 40%. The days and weeks after a disaster are crucial. And when small businesses experience a loss of this size, they often don't have the means to reopen their doors, adding to the financial losses of the community. Jobs, revenue, and taxes are all lost when small businesses cannot recover after a natural disaster. And this may come as a surprise, but the biggest homeowners insurance claims every year are caused by the loss of roof covering, which leads to water coming into the home or water intrusion. When there is shingle loss on a typical roof, about 90% of the water that hits a roof deck enters the structure. And this could equate to 7 bathtubs of water entering your home or business during a natural disaster that involves wind-driven rain. So loss of roof cover is considered a damage amplifier. It catastrophically increases the amount of damage seen post-disaster. So how can we prevent some of this damage? Building codes are a bare minimum solution that only work when they are enforced. This picture illustrates how building codes are meant to work. So all of the houses pictured here on this slide went through Hurricane Harvey in 2017. And as you can see, the more recent the building code, the better the house fared. At the top left is a house built in 2017. It did very well structurally, but if you look closely, you'll notice that the roof panels are missing. The decking is still in place, but the metal roof panels that were originally secured to this house are missing. Because of the loss of roof panels, it's likely that this home had that water intrusion through the roof and had extensive damage inside. If that was the case, insurance may have still declared this home a total loss, despite how well the exterior structure performed. Unfortunately, if you look just below it to the house that was built in 2000, that was a complete and total loss. Only the foundation is still standing. And then if you look across the row of houses at the bottom, I want you to notice the second house from the left, the light blue house, originally built in 1970, but it was retrofitted in 2008, and it did fairly well throughout Hurricane Harvey. But if you go 2 doors down to the house built in 1972, you can tell by the lack of roof and the lack of doors and windows that that structure did not. And the inconsistency with these results illustrates why we really need beyond code construction standards. So before we dive into the details of beyond code construction, I want to introduce our organization a little bit more. We are Smart Home America, 501c3 based in Mobile, Alabama, and I personally am based in Detroit, Michigan. And we believe that informed decisions make a smart home. A smart home does not end up in a landfill after a severe weather event. It starts with resilience. So to us, a smart home is built or updated to withstand wind and wind-driven rain. It will survive rising water and wildfires. It is adequately and affordably insured. It's energy efficient. And then and only then do we worry about the Internet of Things as a part of homes and businesses. Smart Home America exists to educate everyone that touches a built structure. So this could be the contractors that build it, the insurance agent that covers it, or the policymaker that sets the codes and ordinances. We work to give you the information you need to educate your clients, your homeowners, and other people in your community so that we can all take small steps together towards more sustainable and resilient homes, businesses, and communities. So while homeowners, business owners, and consumers are our ultimate targets, we focus our outreach and education on those that they trust. And through our work, we have identified a set of building blocks that are necessary to support resilience and sustainability. When a community puts in place current building code, has flood risk ordinances in place, and implements the fortified construction standards, the foundation for a resilient community is in place. This leads to the need for funding options to mitigate and to incentivize the community, and these can be put in place by state and local policies. As a person's home is generally their largest financial investment, using homeowners insurance as a means of economic resilience is key. To help communities put these building blocks in place, we created a resilient housing planning guide, which you can find by scanning the QR code, or my colleague Graham will drop the link in the chat. The Resilient Housing Planning Guide offers a comprehensive framework to transform how communities approach housing in high-risk areas by integrating pre-disaster planning with post-disaster recovery strategies. The goals of the guide are to reduce damage and loss of current housing, effectively apply for, receive, and use funding after a storm, and improve planning and building standards for new and renovated housing to reduce damage and loss in future storms. By implementing the structured planning process that's outlined in the guide, communities can proactively address vulnerabilities before disasters strike, while positioning themselves to leverage recovery opportunities when they do occur. Each jurisdiction that undertakes the development of a resilient housing plan will create a uniquely tailored document. While the planning framework provides a consistent methodology, the resulting plans reflect the distinct characteristics of each community, such as their residents' specific needs and housing challenges, the local geography and topographical features, the community's economic conditions and resources, and the storm hazards and risk profiles they face. This localized approach ensures that resilience strategies align with community priorities, address specific vulnerabilities, and leverage existing assets rather than imposing generic solutions. By adapting the planning framework to local conditions, communities can create implementation pathways that are both technically and politically feasible within their unique governance structures. So, why are resilient housing plans needed? The striking contrast between these two multifamily developments in Lockport, Louisiana, provides compelling evidence for the value of resilient housing planning. Located just half a mile apart and built by the same developer, these properties experienced dramatically different outcomes when Hurricane Ida made landfall as a Category 4 storm in 2021. The older complex on the left, constructed under older building standards, suffered catastrophic damage and became uninhabitable following the storm. In contrast, the newer development on the right-hand side, which was built to fortified multifamily gold standards, which we'll discuss more later in the presentation, and it was elevated 3 feet above base flood elevation, withstood the exact same hurricane conditions with only minor damage. The resilient design allowed for quick repairs and delayed the property's opening by just 3 weeks. Perhaps most significantly, many residents that were displaced from the destroyed complex on the left were able to relocate to the resilient development, demonstrating how effective building standards directly support community stability during disaster recovery. For communities like Lockport, this stark comparison underscores why resilient housing planning cannot be deferred until after the next disaster. By implementing enhanced standards and strategic development approaches proactively, planning departments can significantly reduce both physical damage and social disruption when severe weather inevitably arrives. And that severe weather really is inevitable. In 2024, there were 27 separate billion-dollar weather and climate disasters that impacted the US. And since 1980, the US has sustained $403 billion weather disasters. And the total cost of those 403 events exceeds $3 trillion. And those are just the most expensive disasters. We need solutions that help keep us safe and protect our homes so that communities are not displaced after these natural disasters. As I mentioned earlier, building codes can be a first step, but statewide building codes are not consistently adopted throughout the United States. And where they are adopted, they're not always enforced. And then there are the states that only have jurisdictional adoptions. And the story remains the same where there is not a consistent enforcement of those building codes. Current and enforced building codes do make a difference in what communities look like post-severe weather. Considering there are a few areas that in the US that do not experience some frequency of severe weather, like the hurricanes in pink, tornadoes in yellow, and wildfire in orange, pictured here, you would hope to see more codes in place throughout the United States. And in those few spaces on the map that seem untouched or where people say they don't have bad weather, the reality is that they likely just haven't experienced bad weather yet. So when dealing with severe weather, we need a new paradigm of recovery. And the new paradigm that we propose is intentional resilience. Think of mitigation as your community's long-term protection plan. Investing in resilient housing, businesses, and infrastructure now means that when the disaster happens, communities can rebound faster. This can lead to dramatic savings in recovery and rebuilding costs, and neighborhoods that stay intact, leading to more resilient communities. Studies have shown that for every $1 spent pre-disaster, it saves $6 to $13 in post-disaster recovery costs. When you think about it, preparation beats reaction every single time. And intentional resilience does not have to cost substantially more than standard construction. Existing materials and methods can be used. Some of those existing methods have been developed by the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, or IBHS. IBHS has been researching damage to built structures for over 20 years. This $40 million research facility is located in South Carolina. And IBHS focuses their efforts on 4 types of damage: wind, hail, wind-driven rain, and wildfire. And I just want to point out all of those roofs that you see at the bottom of the screen there at the research facility, that is what they call their roof farm, where they have roofs out just exposed to the elements, where they test different types of shingles and how they hold up over time. So let's take a closer look at the research center. It features a 6-story test chamber the size of an airplane hangar, with more than 105 fans capable of generating 130-mile-an-hour winds. They conduct extensive research in hail, inventing new ways to generate realistic hail to support their testing. On wildfire, they are the only known facility able to test how embers interact with the built environment. They also study water intrusion through the roof and how to seal it out, and they study the effect of wind on homes to learn how to reduce loss. Their research extends into the field, where they learn what happens after disasters. They study the effects of severe weather on commercial structures, as well as houses. And at full scale, they can recreate severe weather so that scientists sees what fails first and understand what we can do to protect the investment of homeowners. Severe weather disrupts lives, displaces families, and drives financial loss. And IBHS brings together the science and expertise to reduce, and in some cases, eliminate costly risks. So, we're going to do a little quick pop quiz just to make sure you're awake and still with us. I know this is kind of the after lunch hour for people on the East Coast. So the first quiz that we're going to do is real easy question, just true or false. Are building codes well enforced across the United States? True or false? Building codes are well enforced across the United States. Let's see what you guys think. And awesome, you guys are awake and with us and paying attention. 93% of folks got that is false. Building codes are not consistently enforced throughout the United States. And so now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Candace to go a little bit more in depth into Wildfire Prepared.
Good afternoon, everyone. So glad that you all are here. My name is Candace, and I am the Technical Outreach Specialist for Smart Home America. Let's review IBHS's Wildfire Prepared Home Program. More people are moving to the lifestyle offered by small towns found in or near forested land. This often results in wildfires spreading into communities, causing damage that inflates economic loss and increases human suffering. Larger, more dangerous fires are generating wind-blown embers that spread miles from the main fire source, igniting fires that burn larger areas. Fires are becoming a non-seasonal event, occurring whenever prevailing conditions provide dry fuel and warm temperature. Resilience takes buy-in from policymakers, home and business owners, and the whole community. Up to 90% of homes that are destroyed in a wildfire are ignited directly or indirectly by embers. And once ignited, there's a 90% chance that the home will be a complete loss. Once a home ignites, firefighter intervention is needed to stop the fire from consuming a home. Often in wildfires, firefighters are helping with evacuations, and there are not enough firefighters to prevent and properly address the burning homes. This is why preventing ignition is key from the very beginning. Wildfires are natural and normal and have been around since ancient times. They become a problem when they interact with the built environment where people live, work, and play. The focus of our conversation today will be on these challenges of suburban conflagration, or when fire spreads uncontrollable from structure to structure, and how homeowners, neighborhoods, and those policymakers that we all need the buy-in from can reduce the risk posed by suburban conflagration. Here's what we know about where to expect that suburban conflagration to emerge. These events follow people, they follow drought, and they follow wind. So let's talk about what happens when that conflagration unfolds. Wildfires have 3 ignition mechanisms: embers, flames, and radiant heat. When wildfires enter a community, all 3 ignition mechanisms are happening and contributing to the spread. Embers are often how fire first enters a community. When those embers ignite spot fires around structures or ignite structures themselves, those ignitions lead to more embers that lead to more flames and more burning structures produced from that radiant heat. All three can ignite other structures. And structural embers are typically larger than vegetative embers. Adding wind to the mix only makes conditions worse, literally fanning the flames and carrying embers deep into suburban neighborhoods. One of the most important vulnerabilities to conflagration are the connective fuels inside communities, especially the vegetation. Connective fuels can also include things like fences that create pathways for the fire to spread through communities. And we'll see in a minute how wooden fences can help ignite structures. If you look closely, you're going to see blue boxes pop up on the screen. You can clearly see from these blue boxes how much connective fuel is situated between each home in this one community. You know, we all like to have the pretty vegetation, the trees, the flowers, all of the shrubs and things around our houses, but those are the mechanism to help with the wildfire spreading. During wildfires, thousands of embers can travel more than a mile ahead of the main fire. During a wildfire, embers may collect in zone 0, which we're going to talk about zone 0 and define that here in just a minute, which is also known as the home ignition zone. And when this happens, they smolder, ultimately igniting and spreading to the home itself. Once a home ignites in the wildfire, it's almost always going to be a total loss without that firefighter intervention that we spoke about. These embers seek out the fuel in the form of flammable material adjacent to the home. They often collect in corners, crevices, and against walls where they can smolder undetected for hours before actually igniting into flames. Home survival often depends on pre-fire preparation, as those firefighters must prioritize life safety and may not be able to defend every single structure. By understanding and addressing those vulnerabilities that we're going to talk about in Zone 0, though, homeowners can dramatically improve their chances of surviving a wildfire event and minimizing their property damage. Let's talk about the importance of vents for a moment. Having the right type of mesh for attic screens and over openings for crawl spaces, these can help to keep embers from entering into the home in the first place. Many homes already have that mesh to keep out critters, but it's important that the holes be small enough to actually keep out those embers as well. Wildfire preparedness recommends that that mesh be 1/8 of an inch in size. Vents provide an opening for those embers to get inside of a home. That can be that can be what leads to the home igniting in the first place. If they get inside a home though, through the vents or an opening or even a broken window, or if they land on dead vegetation, dry wood, other combustible materials that are close to the home, they can ignite a new fire, which can then consume that home and start a chain of fires within the neighborhood or community. So we're going to talk about 5 feet, a completely around the home of non-combustible space. This is the home ignition zone. Embers collect at the base of a vertical wall and in that first few feet around the building itself. That's why a wildfire prepared homeowner must have 6 inches of vertical non-combustible at the base of the home, and then 5 feet of horizontal non-combustible space around the home itself. Because of research like this, we know the importance of these 2 elements, which you see on the screen here. Entirely non-combustible is even better. And that's in the plus designation, which we're going to break down in a few slides. But this research allows us to make the program more accessible because we understand how the home works together, the home system works together. So by having that 6 inches at the very base, that stops those embers that have collected from being able to ignite the home itself, and the 5 feet around also keeps the vegetation, all the combustible materials from igniting that flame. IBHS has taken their research and created the program that is called Wildfire Prepared Homes. It's a voluntary designation program, and the program is to make meaningful distinctions it will make a meaningful distinction between a property from that is designated from an unmitigated or partially mitigated property. So speaking directly to the wildfire prepared home, that home is going to have a Class A fire rated roof, and it's going to be maintained clear of the debris. It's going to have non-combustible gutters and downspouts. The building features itself are going to include ember and fire resistant vents, that's 6 inches of vertical non-combustible space at the base. It's also going to have a defensible space around it. So you're not just creating it, but you have to maintain that defensible space, which is that 5 foot area that we talked about, including the removal of branches that may overhang your home. Clear and maintain the underdeck area, enclose low elevation decks. So we want to keep all of the items that could burn off the deck, but we also want to make sure that the underside of that elevated deck is enclosed so that those embers can't collect underneath it. Maintain maintain it from the debris. So keeping all of the things in the yard that could create those spot fires, keeping that clear is also important. And you want to replace combustible fencing within 5 feet of your home. So we're going to talk on the next slide more about the Wildfire Prepared Home Plus. So I'm not going to go down that list for you right here. But the Wildfire Prepared Home Plus, I wanted to show you this chart because this chart is available on IBHS's Wildfire Prepared Home site. It's a checklist for you to see the things that would need to be done to get your home to either Wildfire Prepared or to the Wildfire Prepared Home Plus. So of course the plus is going to include all of the things that we just talked about on the previous slide that were with the home, but it's also going to include covering gutters, enclosing the underside of the eaves, installing metal dryer vents, installing a non-combustible exterior wall covering, ensuring that the shutters, if there are shutters on the home, are also non-combustible, upgrade to the fire-resistant windows, upgrade to non-combustible exterior doors, enclose the space underneath bay windows, upgrade to a non-combustible deck, and then removing back-to-back fencing. Homeowners must act by preparing their home and creating the defensible space to significantly improve the likelihood of the home survival. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about the things that go into the wildfire home. Starting with the defensible space, all of the testing that is done by IBHS simulates real-world wildfire conditions, testing various wind speeds and directions while measuring ember ignition at different distances from the structure. The results were definitive. A 5-foot non-combustible zone provides critical protection against ember ignition. This isn't just an estimate or a recommendation. It's a scientifically verified measurement based on that rigorous testing that was done at the research facility. The roof would be a big retrofit to a home, but it is an important retrofit because the roof is a large surface. It is one of the most vulnerable parts of the home, especially with embers traveling from that far distance in front of the fire and having the potential to land on the roof or in the gutter. The embers can ignite anything that is combustible, like wood-shake shingles, plastic gutters, and acrylic skylights. Also, tree debris can collect in the gutters, providing fuel for embers to land on and ignite. And when ignited, the fascia, the roof edge, and the attic are exposed to the direct flames. The good news, though, is that most homes already have a Class A roof. Asphalt shingles, clay and concrete tiles, metal roofs, and all of those are typically Class A, and gutters are typically made of aluminum, leaving only routine maintenance to keep the roof and the gutters actually clear of that debris. If the mesh on your vents is not fine enough, and we're talking that 1/8 inch, this is what your attic could look like during an ember storm. This is why it's so important to install those ember-resistant vents. Wind-blown embers can enter homes through vulnerable vents in your attic, the roof, the gables, any kind of crawl space, and ignite materials inside of the attic. I don't know about you guys, but I keep things up there like the Christmas decorations and boxes left over from packing things that I don't need anymore. Well, when those embers get in, that's a perfect, and I hate to use the word perfect, but it's a perfect storm for those embers to create a fire that just completely and totally destroys the home. So a little bit closer look at the about the 6 inches at the bottom, at the base of the home, keeping that clear. In a wildfire, those embers will accumulate down at the bottom and the base of the exterior wall, and that's where those embers could combust the mulch, and then that mulch then turn around and ignite your home. That also plays into the 5-foot zone, breaking the pathway for small flames and ensuring that the embers have no fuel source or fuel to land on. The zone 0 allows other mitigations like that 6-inch vertical non-combustible clearance and multi-paneled tempered glass to have a positive impact on the outcome of that home during a wildfire. So I'm going to show you a video now, and to me, it's a pretty powerful video. It's only 60 seconds long, but I want you to really pay attention to this video and just the amazement to me of how quick this happens. In this video, you see a duplex inside of the IBHS test chamber that Brooke gave us a tour of earlier. Notice how the embers are being blown towards both sides of this home, and pay particular attention to how both sides react to those embers. On the left side, the embers are entering that critical zone 0 area where there isn't the recommended 6 inches of clearance between the ground and the foundation. Initially, there are combustible materials within that 5-foot horizontal zone. Within moments, you can see how quickly the shrubs and embers ignite the walls of the home and the combustible porch that is on the left-hand side. The contrast between the two homes, it really demonstrates how simply changing of the materials that are used can significantly improve the protection that a home sees. The home on the right, whose zone 0 meets the wildfire prepared standards, meaning proper vertical and horizontal clearance and non-combustible exterior materials are used on that right side where the flames continue to be spread on the left. It's safe to say that home on the left, it's not going to take very long to get it from start to a complete and total loss. Just in 59 seconds, we went from where it started to what you see there. When we say everything in zone 0, though, we mean everything in zone 0. This includes the fences that connect to your home. Simply replacing the last 5 feet of a non-combustible section or gate breaks that pathway. It doesn't give that fire the fuel it needs to continue on to your home or your structure. You can see the impact here in just a moment that has. Think of it as like creating that fire break specifically for your fence line. Embers may still land on and ignite the wooden portion of your fence during that wildfire, but the fire will stop at the non-combustible section rather than continuing to the home's exterior. It's a simple modification that doesn't require replacing the entire fence, just the critical section that is in that 5 feet of your house. It's an affordable upgrade that can save your entire property when wildfire is threatening your community. Remember, in wildfire preparedness, breaking that path of fuel means embers can't ignite the house via the fence itself. Decks and porches that are attached to or built near your home also provide a pathway, again, that fuel for the fire, to reach your home. At a minimum, they need 5 feet of non-combustible zone around them as well. A clear area beneath the deck enclosed to keep those embers and debris out means that there's nothing to ignite and cause a fire to the structure. Embers blown from miles away, again, can easily start spot fires around your house. Creating and maintaining I went a little bit too far there. Bear with me. Creating and maintaining a defensible space on your property, that's going to slow down that spread of the fire. By spacing out bushes and trees, you're also removing the ladder fuels that allow fires to spread and reducing the intensity of the fire near your home. This video, it is a video of one of the first IBHS experiments that were done with wind-driven building to building fire spread from auxiliary structures, your man caves, she sheds, where your gardening materials are, that sort of thing. Burning the sheds, the pergolas, play sets, any other structure, if you got a wooden play set, any other structure, doll houses, it increased the risk that um, to the home because of the additional radiant heat and the flames, and also the embers that are coming off of that and being produced. If you move these accessories further away, again, you are better protecting your home in the long run. Adding gutter covers reduces maintenance by keeping tree debris out. These covers prevent the accumulation of dry leaves, of pine needles and twigs that could serve as kindling for flying embers during a wildfire event. By eliminating this potential fuel source from your roof's edge, you substantially decrease one of the most common ignition points during a wildfire. I don't know about you guys, but I have pine trees all around my house, and nothing is more irritating than have to get on the roof and get those pine needles out. But it has to be done. And again, by doing that, you are significantly reducing the chance of an ignition from those foreign materials. Radiant heat can build up in an opening eave and ignite exposed materials. Flames from nearby fuel sources, such as sheds or the vegetation, again, can ignite those eaves. Radiant heat, ember, and flames can also ignite combustible siding. Replacing all combustible siding provides a greater protection against flames and that radiant heat. Flames can spread across combustible siding to reach other vulnerable areas like the windows and the eaves. And then that can just basically begin the cascade of damage to the home. During a wildfire, windows are susceptible to the flames. It's kind of hard to see, but if you watch close, you see that window pane fall out, and that was from the heat itself. Upgrading those windows and doors can keep flames from entering and igniting the materials that are on the inside of your house. So we want to keep it on the outside, certainly, but we want to keep it away from the house as well. Recent research from IBHS, it shows that the tempered outer pane of a dual pane window can fail after approximately 10 minutes of exposure. Therefore, at least 2 panels being tempered is best is best for the home. Upgrade to the solid doors that have a metal threshold and are constructed with a non-combustible or ignition-resistant material such as metal, fiberglass, or solid hardwood. Remember that 6 inches worth of space that we mentioned. We want to stop those embers from even getting started to begin with. By putting one of those metal, fiberglass, solid hardwood door on there, you are lowering the chance that those embers will be able to start a fire in the first place. Alternatively, you could install a non-combustible storm door at the outermost door of your home. Replacing that combustible siding, including wood fiber, and vinyl siding with a non-combustible material like concrete fiberboard, stucco, brick, stone veneer. Those are also recommended. So this is a video that's going to start here in just a second. We're looking obviously at the attached deck on this video. It's a vulnerable point on the home and can be a pathway to carry the fire to your home itself. If in looking at the mulch, you can see the black circular areas where vegetation has been ignited. This represents how embers can start spot fires, and when given a pathway to the home, can present a risk for ignition of the home itself. Notice on the left-hand side, it has that 5-foot non-combustible zone, and it's surrounding a non-combustible deck assembly. That's eliminating the combustion material, which creates that protective barrier on your home. So by putting that barrier up and by using a non-combustible material, you're stopping that fire from being able to get to your home from the very beginning. If you look, you can see over here where some of those spot fires were, and you see how close they got, but also how far they were kept away from the home. Back-to-back fencing, this in those gaps that are there, You can get debris trapped, limbs, pine straw, trash, anything along those lines, and it creates a vulnerable fuel bed to ignite both fences. The two fences together provide even greater fuel for a even more intense fire. IBHS has a thorough process for issuing designations to make sure that homes meet that wildfire prepared standards. Again, all of these standards can be found on the Wildfire Prepared website. Yet receiving a designation is honestly just the beginning. There's ongoing components to the program because of maintenance required to maintain that designation. So it's not just a one and done kind of thing. Property owners would be responsible for maintaining the designation. And I always like to make sure that, especially when I'm talking to developers or builders, I always like to make sure that you are aware, yes, you doing these things in the beginning is great, but you need to be sure that if you get these designations, whether it be this one or the one that we're going to talk about with the high wind standards here in a bit, make sure that the homeowners are aware and understand what they need to do to continue to keep that designation. To get started, the Homeowner's Guide explains the technical requirements of the program, why each of these elements matter, and all the things that the homeowners need to know, honestly. It even explains how a golf tee can be used to make figuring the vent compliance a little bit easier. While the information is geared towards homeowners, because a lot of this can be a DIY mitigation approach to a point. Builders and developers, again, you can use the same resources to implement wildfire prepared homes for customers or for projects that you are working on. There on their website, there is an online home assessment, and it's free to do. And Graham, if you wouldn't mind, I don't know, you may have already dropped the website into the chat, but if you wouldn't mind dropping that into the chat, that'd be great. The assessment, it takes homeowners through every element of the standard to make sure that that they are eligible and have done everything that is needed to meet the standard. So it's going to say, have you done this? Do you have the 6 inches? Do you have the 5 feet of clearance around the home? And then, of course, the homeowner can go, well, that's done, but that's not. I need to do that before we, carry on with this process. The home is a system, so every requirement must be met. So it's not like piecemealing it together to get a designation. Of course, piecemealing it together is okay, and as far as in the start, and if that's the extent of what a homeowner can do. But to get the actual designation, to see the benefit to the potential benefit to your insurance policies, you want to make sure that all of the standards are met, and you have that certificate of designation. Then the homeowner is going to apply, submit their application into the system. And once that application has been submitted, an inspector will come out after applying. A home inspector will visit the property and do a walk around of the property to verify that everything from the home assessment is accurate. You can see this inspector out with a measuring tape, making sure that there's at least 5 feet or more. They're measuring the distance for the zone around the gate to stop that fuel from coming from the wood frame. It's from the wood fence itself. Wow, the word fence left me. So the company that is used by the IBHS program, they are the inspectors that come out. Step 1 for this is to choose a time that works best for you to get on a call with the inspectors. They'll collect some basic information, answer any questions, and schedule a consultation. During the consultation, a wildfire risk specialist will assess the property, and they'll provide guidance to help you along the way. You're going to get a digital report and a custom treatment plan that prioritizes actions to protect your home or to meet the insurer's requirement if this is part of your insurance company's requirement to get insurance with them. And that includes the wildfire prepare home. Step number 3 is take actions with simple projects. Some of them can be tackled over a weekend, or you can get the help from a vetted contractor to help ensure that the job is done right the first time. And then we move to step number 4. When you're ready, You schedule a final inspection with the company to document everything for your insurer and or to go ahead and submit over for the wildfire prepared home certification. IBHS will then take the documentation that's been submitted and by that third party inspector and issue a designation. The designation demonstrates that the homeowner is committed to wildfire resilience. Again, this designation differentiates properties that have implemented an advanced wildfire mitigation method versus those homes that have not. A designation is valid for 3 years. Each year of that 3 years, you will need to have the homeowner, either you as the property owner or the homeowner themselves, submit pictures for the landscape review to ensure that the property is being maintained to the wildfire prepared standards. So you can't put the rocks down this week, take the pictures, get your designation, and then in 6 weeks decide, you know what, I'm going to stick some shrubs right up next to my house. At the year mark, that's going to come into play when you have to resubmit documentation and pictures to show that the home is still within the standards. When we put all of these factors together, you can get devastation, or you can significantly increase your chances that your home will survive. Dr. Jack Kahn was considered, who many consider to be the father of wildfire science, says community wildfire risk should be defined as home ignition problem, not a wildfire control problem. That is to say, we can't suppress or control our way out of a wildfire crisis, but there are things that we can do and policies that states can embrace to help reduce the likelihood of this neighborhood, of their neighborhoods looking like what you see on the screen here. Sorry, my brain gets lost on me sometimes just seeing the devastation and destruction that these fires can cause. To advance resilience, we believe that 3 tools are necessary: a statewide WUI code, statewide defensible space requirements, and financial incentives to help homeowners retrofit their existing homes. California is leading the way with a statewide WUI code and a grant program for resilient retrofits. Because mitigation at the neighborhood scale is so important, we recommend taking a clustered approach to grants and incentives to help the whole community act together. Voluntary designations are helpful, but they're not enough. We also need wildfire policies at the local, the state, and the federal level to reflect that the science currently, what science currently tells us about how to prevent homes from igniting during a wildfire. So we are going to have another pop quiz. I know we gave you a lot of information right there, but the information is just going to cover the things that I have talked about with you thus far. And the question is, how much space around a home should be completely non-combustible? Is it 3 feet, 5 feet, 7 feet, or 9 feet? How much space around a home should be completely non-combustible? And the answer is correct. So that's going to be 5 feet, 15 out of 15. That's awesome, guys. So we are at a stopping point where we're going to take a 5-minute break and allow you to get something to drink, go to the restroom, and we will come back. It is 1:50 where I am right now, so it's 50 minutes past the hour. Let's come back at 55 minutes past the hour. All right, we're back at 1:55 after the hour. I'm actually going to turn it back over to Brooke for just a bit. Brooke, are you ready to get us started on the next little section here?
Yep, let's do it.
Awesome.
Excellent. So for the high wind portion of this training, let's begin with how high wind affects built structures. With the extensive research that has been completed at the IBHS Research Lab and the data gathered from the field by the IBHS team, we can accurately predict the damage that will be seen if we know the wind speed a location has seen. It all starts with the roof cover, soffits, and fascia, and compounds as the wind speed increases. So like I mentioned, roof soffits and fascia, the wall cover, roof sheathing, and the roof structure. And then the final step is total collapse of the home or built structure. So we also have some pictures that really kind of emphasize how the research done at IPHS is supported by what we see in the field after a disaster. So kind of at the lowest level of high winds, we have the roof cover, soffits, and fascia affected. Then as the wind speed increases, the siding and wall cover can start to be affected. As wind speeds continue to increase, roof sheathing and the roof structure can be destroyed. And like I mentioned, at the highest wind speeds, the buildings can completely collapse and be blown away. And one other thing I want to point out here too is we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but just like water coming in through the roof once the shingles are gone is a damage amplifier, certain things around your home can be a damage amplifier too. And one of the biggest is the garage door. So if you look at the picture on the right from the IBHS research facility, you can see that the garage door is on the front of the home, but the left side wall is completely blown out. And that is replicated with what we see in the field. So the picture on the left-hand side was a home in Chattanooga, Tennessee that went through an EF3 tornado. And Candace is going to talk about this a little bit more in detail, but it was actually only in the EF1 zone of damage. But you can still see that this is absolutely catastrophic damage. And part of that is because the garage door was blown in. So if you look straight ahead, you can see that white car, but that opening straight on is not the garage door. If you look closely, the garage door is actually over on the right-hand side. So this is really important to notice how closely the damage we see in the IBHS research facility mimics the damage we see out in the field. And it really supports the validity of the fortified and the wildfire prepared home standards. So what we know from kind of IBHS research and these post-hurricane damage assessments that happen out in the field are that newer roofs did better. Homes that are built to newer codes did better. Low slope roofs are vulnerable, but installation is key. Garage doors are damage amplifiers, and sealed roof decks limit water intrusion damage. So to make the implementation of resilience more consistent, IBHS developed the Fortified program. And the Fortified program includes standards for homes, commercial facilities, and multifamily buildings as well. This graph provides a strong visual depicting that when the right nudges are identified and properly implemented, the growth of the fortified standards can be exponential. You can see how the numbers of fortified designations have dramatically increased, with the greatest rate of growth occurring since early 2020. Designations increased from 25,000 and have now topped over 74,000 designations nationwide. Insurance, financial incentives, and policies at the state and local level have proven to be the formula for success when instituting these standards for resilience. So financial incentives for fortified can include insurance discounts, tax credits or deductions, mitigation credits, and we found that grant programs are some of the most impactful incentives as they not only help homeowners reach a fortified designation, but perhaps more importantly, these investments bring awareness to the program and help grow the infrastructure. Right now, there are grant programs in Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, and North and South Carolina. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas has a program that homeowners in New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi can qualify for. States that have passed legislation to create a grant program include Minnesota, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Maine. And additional states currently considering grant program legislation include Oregon, Hawaii, Colorado, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Texas. So you can see that these standards are really starting to spread across the nation. And Alabama's Department of Insurance was one of the first to use fortified as the standard for resilient construction and re-roofing. More than 10 years later, it has truly become the national standard. Fortified designations are now specifically listed as requirements for grants issued through a number of state and federal agencies. And it has long been an eligible expense in the SBA's post-disaster loan program. It is gaining this level of acceptance because it offers benefits to homeowners and their communities. And we also want to emphasize that these standards are not substantially more expensive than your normal construction. These are just a few of the not-for-profit developers that we work with in order to create affordable and fortified housing across the nation. And so I want to bring it back to building codes for just a second, as building codes historically were just concerned with life safety. The structure should stay intact long enough for you to escape during a disaster. Property protection was not part of the consideration. But as we've talked about before, a home is often a family's largest financial investment. So recent building codes have added property protection in the form of a sealed roof deck. However, fortified really tries to protect both human life and the property itself. The goal is for the building to survive a severe weather event and to be reusable quickly by protecting the interior of the building and its contents. And I'm going to hand it back over to Candace as she's going to go into a lot more detail about what these fortified standards are and how you can use them.
So since 2018, nearly 90% of all the homes that have that are the fortified standards have seen at least one landfall. More than 50 of those events have occurred during the span, have lost, as a whole, lost billions of dollars. Fortified is proven to reduce both frequency and severe loss. And we're not just talking about hurricanes here, we're talking about high winds, whether it be tornadoes, straight line wind, derechos, all of that are included in that protection. We can't prevent all of the damage that you see here. In May of 2013, a devastating EF5 tornado ripped through Moore, Oklahoma. We can't prevent the EF5 damage that you see on the screen right now, but what we can do is we can address some of the damage that you're going to see in the EF3, and we're going to totally eliminate the damage from the EF0 and the EF1 and 2 lines of damage. When that tornado came through Moore, Oklahoma, when it touched down, the total path of that tornado was 17 miles. Of that 17 miles of being on the ground, less than or right at 0.0012 square miles were actually affected by the wind speeds that would equate to the EF5. And for the EF4 wind speeds, it was 0.46 square miles that were affected. So less than a half of a square mile was actually affected by those EF4 and EF5 winds. We know that using fortified building standards narrows the path of destruction when a tornado does strike a community. When all structures meet some level of fortified designation, several benefits occur. The debris fields for those EF0s, 1s, and 2s can be completely eliminated. Damage to buildings during the higher intensities, EF2 and EF3, can be reduced. And for the EF4 and EF5 tornadoes, a safe room or a community shelter becomes very essential, as building survival cannot be guaranteed at those extreme wind speeds. Looking at tornado damage assessments, we can see the practical impact though. The numerous green dots that you see on the screen, those represent homes that had the primary shingle loss was their primary damage that occurred. The damage could have been prevented with those fortified standards had they been in place, including the documented proper roof installation according to the manufacturer's specifications. Since tornadoes are rarely a dry weather event, they typically involve some sort of rain, which means the houses that lose shingles often suffer the water damage from the water intrusion. A sealed roof deck, which is a part of the fortified standards, could have helped avoid this. If you'll remember back to the slide that Brooke showed us in the beginning, 90% of homes have some sort of damage to the roof. And then she also mentioned that 8 inches worth of rain per hour equates to 7 bathtubs worth of water hitting that roof deck. The consequence is significant. Homes that might have sustained just minor damage and be livable instead become uninhabitable due to the water intrusion coming into the home and the need for sheetrock to be pulled, carpet to be replaced, all of the belongings to be replaced. Residents who could have remained in their house despite the exterior damage, they now become displaced. And building to the fortified standards could have helped communities, can help, excuse me, communities stay intact after a tornadic event. 46% of single-family homes damage modes are addressed in some element of fortified from that Moore, Oklahoma EF5 tornado. So you've heard me say the word fortified home quite a bit. You heard Brooke say fortified as well. What is fortified? Fortified is a voluntary program. It is verified by an independent third party. There are 2 standards, which are the hurricane and the high wind. There are 3 levels within those 2 standards, which are the roof, silver, and gold. And each fortified level builds on the one before it. Therefore, all fortified homes have that fortified roof designation. A silver designation is also going to have a fortified roof on it, and gold is going to have both silver and a roof involved with it. If you live along the coast, you're going to be under the fortified home hurricane program. It's very similar to the fortified home high wind program, and we're going to talk about the differences here in just a second between the two. A fortified roof, it will keep the roof on and keep the water out. When we address fortified silver, it's looking at reducing the damage amplifiers, like the garage door that Brooke showed us the photo of. You still have that fortified roof again, and you're adding strengthening to the gables, a wind-rated garage door, securing the chimney to the house, anchoring your porches or carports. And for hurricanes, you must have opening protection against debris impact with some sort of hurricane shutter. And then for the fortified gold, we're including all of those things that we just talked about, but we're incorporating a continuous load path, and we're protecting the openings against that the high pressures. There is for all levels of fortified, there is a hail supplement that can be added. This adds impact rated roof covering, and the impact rated roof covering must have met the good or excellent rating that is designated by the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. So for the fortified home high wind, we're looking at keeping the roof on and the water out. It's got an enhanced roof deck, and we're looking at that high performance wind rating. For silver, the same as the roof, but then we're reducing those damage amplifiers, the gables, overhangs, the securing the chimney to the house, and anchoring the structures, porches and carports. And then with fortified gold, it puts that continuous load path in. Keep in mind that, again, the hail supplement is also available for this high wind standard. High wind is going to be more for your inland areas that are more likely to be affected by tornadoes, that straight line wind. All of those are going to fall into that. So let's start with the fortified roof. There are 3 principles that we look at with a fortified roof. We want to nail it down, we want to seal it up, and we want to lock it in. What does that mean? So with nailing it down, fortified roofs require that the roof deck be re-nailed with 8D ring shank nails. Ring shank nails are used, and a tighter nailing pattern is put in to double the strength of the pull off of the roof or the uplift resistance, just by simply using a different nail than that common nail, that smooth common nail, and putting a tighter nailing pattern into the rafters is going to double that uplift resistance. So when wind gets into the attic, you've got that extra protection to keep and hold the roof deck onto the house itself, because the roof is such an important piece to the puzzle. Talked about this. Should have clicked the button. My apologies. And here's kind of a shot of that 8D nail. If you look closely, the difference in a smooth and an 8D is going to be those grooves that are on the nail. One of the other requirements for the nails is that it has to be long enough to have appropriate penetration from the roof deck into the rafters. Staples and 6D nails, they are not allowed in the fortified program. Here are some examples for you to see of roof decks that were damaged or torn off because they were not fastened adequately. That's a lot of space for water to be able to come into the home, especially that picture that you see on the right. But when you keep in mind that most of the time wind is not just falling straight down onto a home, it is coming at an angle. That is a huge gap for that water to be able to get underneath that roof deck. And if you look at it, you can see where that roof deck has bowed. So we know that there is water damage on that roof deck and on the inside of it. The next piece here is going to be keep the water out. So you, from the looks of the screen right there, and where it's highlighted, you can see that black, it looks like black tape that is over the seams of the roof deck. I'm going to show you a demonstration here in just a second, and pay special attention to the left-hand side as this video gets moving. And that's going to be where you're going to see that tape on the left-hand side. So water intrusion, if 60% of the 8 inches per hour of rain that's hitting this house, which is again that 7 bathtubs, is getting in, once the roof covering is lost, and the ceiling, the seams of the roof deck can provide up to 95% of that water staying out, why would we not do it? Especially if it's going to cost you $500 to do it. So this duplex, was placed inside of the research facility. It is built to the exact same standards on both sides, and those are the standards that are usually seen around the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic regions. The home is put on a railroad cart turner so that the house can be twisted and turned. All sides of it can be hit equally with the same amount of wind, as well as the same angle of the water hitting the home itself. You can see that the home was furnished with complete furnishings. We have the light fixtures that the water is pouring around. Good shot of the gap in that roof deck and how easily that water is to get into it. So they hit this house on both sides. They got a shot here of the water coming through into the insulation and weighing it down. And this is the results on that right-hand side. The insulation gets heavy. It causes the roof to collapse and fall in, which leads to more water intrusion if this happens before the rain stops. There's no way that this home is livable directly after the storm. A family could not come back and be there. On the left side that had that less than $500 worth of tape on it, you see that it looks really good. If you were paying close attention, you would have noticed a little bit of insulation on the floor, and you can kind of see it on the bottom left-hand side of the screen here. That came because the wind that got into the attic, it blew the insulation on the dry side around, and when they opened up the hatch, that insulation came through. The moral of this, though, is that after the test was shut down and the individuals were able to walk into the home, that left side was completely dry. You could sit on the couch, you could sit on the bed, your clothes would not get wet. The belongings on the inside were not damaged, they weren't ruined. Nothing needed to be replaced as far as that goes at this side of the duplex. This home, had someone been living in it and a storm, whether it be a tornado or a hurricane, had come through, when that family returned, they would have had a place to live. They would have had a safe place to live. They may not have had water, they may not have had electricity, but they would have had a place to start the rebuilding process for the rest of the community. After the test was complete, IBHS brought in an independent insurance adjuster to look at the home. What they found was a huge difference. Just over, and this test was originally done in 2011, and the dollars have been adjusted to the 2020 inflation. So, being that we are at 2025 now, that number would be higher because of inflation. But the damage estimates for the left-hand side were just over $6,000 compared to the damage estimates for the right-hand side with the unsealed roof deck. And this is a good shot for you to see. This tape, again, for a 2,000 square foot home, you're looking at about $500 for that tape. On this duplex, because it was a 1,300 square foot duplex and we only put it on half of it, of course, that $500 number comes down dramatically. Excuse me. The damage estimates, they did not include the belongings that were inside of the home, any of the costs to for the family to have somewhere else to stay, that sort of thing were not included in that damage estimate. So let's look at how we can achieve that, that sealed roof deck. With an underlayment laid on the roof deck, that underlayment should be installed at 4 inches on a horizontal overlap at the top and bottom with 6 inches inlaps. At the top of the roof, the underlayment should fold 6 inches over the ridge on both sides. Nails should be spaced every 6 inches on center at the horizontal laps and inlaps, and 12 inches on center both horizontally and vertically in between laps, or in accordance to the manufacturer's requirements, whichever is more stringent. Cap nails should be held off the edge by 4 inches to allow the drip edge to be installed over a smooth surface. The drip edge will hold the underlayment in place, and we're going to talk about the drip edge here in just a little bit. But that drip edge should be installed, should be able to be installed over it. Underlayment products come in different widths, and fasteners must be installed at a maximum of 12 inches on center, which means that there may be more than 2 rows of fasteners in between the courses of underlayment. These are some types of the tape that meet the requirement. A modified bitumen tape, butyl, or the acrylic tape can meet. As you can see from the chart, though, there are advantages and for each of them, and the location of the home that you are working with, it could play a factor in which of those types of tapes that you would choose. Fortified, I want to point out, very important, Fortified is product agnostic. What I mean when I say that is that there's no one particular product that you have to use this name brand. You can't walk into a big box or even a mom and pop shop building store and say, hey, I need a fortified roof. It's just not going to happen. The components for the fortified roof are going to be there, but not a fortified roof with air quotes around it. With that product agnostic, the key there is going to be that the products have been tested and they meet the requirements to be a part of the fortified program. The next option that we have for a sealed roof deck is going to be the fully adhered membrane. The fully adhered membrane, it's a bit simpler than the underlayment, but it is a more expensive system. The entire roof is covered with this membrane. Because it's fully covered, the roof can also be used with tongue and groove or dimensional lumber. It's recommended that if you're putting asphalt shingles over a fully adhered membrane, that you use some sort of synthetic underlayment as a bond break, because it could potentially cause problems when it comes time to change that covering that's on the roof. The advantage of the system, again, the installation is easier and complete coverage, allowing for that tongue and groove. The disadvantages would be that more expensive, and it could pose challenges when it comes time for the re-roof. And there are a few products that cannot be used over a fully adhered membrane, like cedar shingles could not be laid over a fully adhered membrane. So here's just kind of a shot. If you don't know what a fully adhered membrane is, you've probably been driving down the road and seen what looks like almost like a patterned blanket over the roof, and that's going to be that fully adhered membrane. The next is going to be 2 layers of organic 30-pound felt. This application requires a specific nailing pattern, and the layers must be fully overlapping one another. The advantages to this system is that it has complete coverage, allowing it to be used again on that tongue and groove roof. And it's less expensive than a fully adhered membrane. The disadvantage is going to be the training that is required because it does have a very specific nailing pattern that has to be used on it. So, with everything in life, there are going to be advantages, but there are also disadvantages. It can be done. Just know that there is a very stringent nailing pattern on it. The underlayment must be attached using angular ring or deformed shank nails with sufficient length to penetrate through the roof sheathing and a minimum 1-inch diameter metal or plastic button cap. Staples cannot be used. Metal caps and nails or metal cap nails are required for ultimate design wind speeds of 160 miles per hour or greater. For homes that are located within 3,000 feet of a saltwater shoreline, those fasteners have to meet the corrosion protection requirements for them to be allowed on that roof. The last one that I'm going to talk about is going to be the spray foam adhesive used. It can be used, but it must be tested and evaluated in accordance with the ASTM E330 or the TAS 20294 criteria. That has a minimum allowable design uplift pressure that is greater than or equal to 110 PSF, and the proof test pressure achieved without failure or structural distress must be greater than 165 PSF. This product, this spray foam adhesive, it does have to be the 2-pound component spray is a polyurethane spray foam system, and there's a minimum core density for it. The spray foam not only helps to keep water out of the attic itself, but it also has an adhesive property that would replace using the ring shank nails. So if someone had recently put a new roof on, say you put a new roof on within the last 6 months, and you're like, man, this fortified thing, this is pretty good. I'd like to be a part of it. But you can't get all the documentation that's going to need, but you're going to need to get that designation because it was completed before you knew about it. There could potentially be a pathway to get a designation for the home using the spray foam on the inside, but there's a lot of factors that play into that, and happy to discuss those factors with anyone individually who may have questions about those. Brooke did a great job of talking about building codes earlier, and I would like to add one more thing to what she had and the information she had. If the building codes are well enforced, roofing is often not addressed with the building code officials. These homes went through Hurricane Michael in 2018. You can see that these homes did relatively well, but notice the roof damage. These homes had extensive damage inside, and even though the home looked okay from the outside, the homeowners were more than likely displaced from their homes while the repairs on the inside were done, and that's evident by the debris that you see at the curbs. It's not just limbs. You see carpet, you see personal belongings, the dressers, things along those lines. Again, the largest payout for insurance are those damage that is caused by that specific water intrusion. And that sealed roof deck, by putting the sealed roof deck on there, again, you're cutting 95% of the water that would have gotten into your roof. You're cutting that out, which stops the need for these items to be replaced. So the last piece of the roof is going to be the drip edge itself. A drip edge is a type of material. It's a metal flashing that is installed at the edge of the roof, and it helps control the flow of water away from the fascia, and it protects the underlaying roof components. So with the fortified standards, the drip edge is put on a little bit different than what you may have normally seen a drip edge done. The drip edge is located on the parameter of the roof, and that is the most vulnerable area of the roof, which we're going to see here in just a little bit with another animation that I have. But This is where the roof experiences the highest wind pressures. It's the weakest point of the roof as far as those wind pressures are concerned. In the fortified standard, the drip edge holds the sealed roof deck in place, and it serves as an anchor point at the edge of the roof covering system. A drip edge is required by current versions of the IRC. However, its use may not be required in every jurisdiction, or it may not be regularly enforced. But even where it is not enforced, it is not against the rules to put one on there, regardless of whether it's in the code or not. So I want to show you what a poorly attached drip edge can do. If you look at the picture that is on the screen right now, you'll see the down towards the bottom, you're going to see two nails that are spaced, pretty far apart. I don't have a measuring tape on it, but that looks like a pretty good distance there for me. But then you'll notice that the next place that a nail was put in is all the way up here. That is a lot of space for this roof to be vulnerable to peeling back and allowing the drip edge to affect the rest of the roof covering. With a fortified drip edge, there are some key components that make it more structurally sound. The drip edge is nailed on a staggering pattern, and the nailing pattern is a lot tighter than what you just saw on that picture there. Sections where those sections overlap with each other, they must overlap at least 3 inches, and they must be fastened with a minimum of 2 nails in the overlap, depending on how wide that drip edge itself is. So before the drip edge actually gets nailed down, if asphalt shingles are being placed onto the roof, the shingles along the perimeter of the roof, they must be adhered to the roof itself. There are 2 ways that you can achieve that. The first is by adding an 8-inch wide strip of flashing cement for the first course of shingles to be laid on. And then the second is a fully adhered starter strip of shingles that are put onto the roof. It's not acceptable to lay the first course of shingles directly over the felt or over a membrane though. So a sealed roof deck underlayment with the drip edge itself, and you add that starter strip and the roof shingle. Basically what you've got there is the load path for the roof covering. Asphalt shingles are the most common roof covering. Class F and Class H wind resistance are both acceptable for the fortified program. Other roof types, the coverings may also be installed. You can see from the picture here, metal, tile, low slope. All of those can be installed. Again, installation is key, that it meets the fortified standards, that it meets the manufacturer's requirements for its installation. It's important to verify that the materials that are being installed anywhere on your home have been tested and determined how they stand up to the wind. If you have questions about certain products testing, you can always check with the Fortified Evaluator, which we are going to talk about here in a little bit. They are your on-site eyes and ears to make sure that everything that the contractor is doing is being done to the fortified standards, but they are also there to double check these materials. That hail supplement that I mentioned, it is, again, it's optional. It's not required. It's optional, but it can be put on there. Keep in mind, if you are going for a hail supplement, steep slope impact rated roof covering, low slope has to be the impact rated roof covering. If there are any skylights on the home, those skylights have to be impact rated. And if there are any solar panels on the installed on the home, those have to be impact rated. If you are putting any of those on the roof, excuse me. If you're putting any of those on the roof, then we need to also make sure that they are installed correctly on the roof to not cause a problem with the integrity of the fortified roof. IBHS has done testing and rated the asphalt shingles. For that supplement, they must be rated the excellent or good by IBHS. You can go to IBHS's website, the ibhs.org/hail shingles performance ratings. It's on the bottom of the screen there. You can go to their website and find a list of all of the shingles and the manufacturers that their shingles are going to meet those requirements. All roof-mounted vents installed on a home seeking a fortified home designation with a new roof must have documentation to show that they have met the requirements for TAS 100A. That's a testing standard, and it is referenced within the Florida Building Code for you to be able to find the what those standards are. This standard details the testing procedure for wind and wind-driven rain resistance, as well as the wind speed resistance of soffits, ventilation strips, and the continuous or the intermittent ventilation system installed on the ridge area. The documents for this requirement will most likely be accomplished. The documentation for this is most likely accomplished by obtaining a roofer compliance form from the contractor themselves. If you are in an area that is prone to hurricanes, then you're going to have some sort of covering to put over the gable end wall vent. The gable end wall vent is generally a pretty large opening that's on the home. The key to this, of course, you don't want to leave that covering up year round. So the key to this is going to be the permanent anchoring being on the home. With that permanent anchoring on the home, you can take the covering down in between weather events. This is not a requirement in high wind areas, and it's not a requirement in high wind areas because no one expects someone to climb up on their roof as a tornado is barreling down on them to make sure that the gable end is braced. At that point, it's get you and your family to a safe spot. So now we're going to look at the silver, fortified silver, which is going to address those windows and doors, garage doors. It's going to address porches and attached structures. And where it is applicable, we're going to look at the gable end bracing. There are various different types of impact-rated opening protection systems, shutter systems, opening covers. These can be permanently or temporarily attached to the home with a permanent anchoring system. Regardless of the shutter system that is used, it must be installed per the manufacturer's requirement. You can see from the screen here, we've got the corrugated metal, polycarbonate, fabric, and wood. The wood panels can only be used where the wind speed is going to be less than 130 miles per hour. So this video doesn't, it's got a little sound in the background, so I'm not gonna talk through it, but this is the importance of the one of the other damage amplifiers. It's gonna be that garage door. And that's that picture that that Brooke showed you earlier of the garage door failing and then the wall itself coming loose from the home. You know, we want to do everything that we can to reduce or eliminate anything that is going to amplify the damage that is seen to the home. The next piece for the silver is going to be the attached structure requirements. Each connection on an attached structure must be strengthened to resist wind pressures and minimize the chances that it will become that damage amplifier like the garage door we just saw. The connections that need to be in place to strengthen the structure itself are going to be roof or the trusses to the beams to the column or walls, and finally the column or walls to the foundation. It all needs to be strapped to resist the wind that is coming through. So the next slide is a video. IBHS moved a mobile home inside of their research facility. The first set here is going to be of it not attached to the fortified standards. And the wind on this first test is going to be at 80 miles an hour. It happens pretty quickly. So it shows it in slow motion first, and then we get into the full speed version of it, but it happens pretty quickly. Once that 10 starts to come back, you see that the structure itself collapses and over 75% of the roof gets ripped off, and just that quickly. So they went back and they attached everything correctly. They upped the speeds from 80 miles an hour to 110 miles an hour. And you can see how the roof stayed intact. It did not lose its connection. It did not, the shingles on that home did not come off, meaning that the water from that wind event was not able to get inside of that home. One more time, a quick view. 80 miles an hour, improperly connected. 110 miles an hour, properly connected. To the next piece of silver, fortified silver, is going to be the gable ends and the bracing. If the gable end is 36 inches or taller, then there is a specific way that those gable ends need to be braced back to the home. If it's less than 36 inches, there is no additional bracing that's needed. And depending on where you're at, that gable end may already be braced back correctly, but it would need to be checked. A good visual for you of why the bracing is important. These homes had some high wind that came through, and you can see, I'd like to point out to you that that gable end, it did not go in, it came out. And that's what happens when those gable ends are not properly braced. They're going to come out of the home because of the wind and the pressure that gets inside of it. It basically blows that gable end away from the house, and opens up for a lot of that water intrusion. So that is the silver portion, keeping in mind, and you'll probably hear me say this again, silver includes the roof. So now we're going to talk about the continuous load path. So a continuous load path is basically tying everything together as far as the structure of the home from top to bottom. We want to make sure with a continuous load path that the home has its best chance to survive either a hurricane or a high wind. Let me go back. Let's start that video. Oh no. I apologize. There must be some sort of problem with that particular slide. What that slide is showing is the continuous load path of the structure, how the wind hits and gives that pushing pressure on the sides of the home here, the walls, and then the negative pulling pressure when that wind gets onto the roof itself. So when you put that pushing pressure with the pulling pressure, it can create a situation where the roof itself completely comes off of the home. So the keys to preventing that are along the force path, which is the way that the force path is the way that the wind flows across the house. The keys to that are keeping that force path properly connected to each other. So you start at the top with the shingles. The shingles are going to need more nails to stay secure during the high wind. The roof deck below it, we talked about the 8D ring shank nails. It's that tighter nailing pattern with the stronger the stronger nail connection through it. And then we move from there. We move down to the rafters and making sure that the rafters are tied to the walls correctly using a strap. And then from the rafters, we go down the walls and make sure that the walls are connected securely and properly, using a metal clip that has met the testing standards and requirements for fortified, making sure that that metal clip is secured to the foundation itself. And what happens there is that when the wind comes, it makes sure that the wind gets distributed down the house and safely and securely to the ground itself. The other thing is that opening protection, the design pressure on the opening protection of the home. When a house is going through a storm, if a board or some sort of object comes through and it breaks the glass, what happens is that wind rushes into the home and the home basically starts to expand like a balloon. When it expands like a balloon, it's putting extra pressure on the inside of the house, which only is exacerbated because of the wind. You've got the wind flowing in, the wind pulling up on the roof, which can lead to the catastrophic damage. So I'm going to show you a video here of there are two houses that are side by side. The houses cost the same to build. The statement that's on here is it's pretty accurate. Which of these houses would you rather own, buy, sell, or insure? The home that is on the right in this video is the same house through every single one of these tests. The home on the left is not. The home on the right is a fortified house. Each of these houses are failing in different manners. You know, the first one was blown off of the foundation. Now we have the roof coming off of that one. What if I told you that the difference in cost in building these houses was $3,000? So the home on the right had $3,000 worth of extra hardware in it that kept that home standing. So for $3,000 more at the build of this home, that home was secure against the wind speeds that we're seeing. So let's talk about what makes a home eligible for a fortified designation. Not all homes are eligible for the fortified program. It is possible for new and existing homes, though, to be eligible. Single family detached homes, duplexes, townhouses, and manufactured homes can qualify for a fortified designation. With the manufactured homes, though, I want to point out that the requirements are that it was built after July of 1994, the manufactured home was, and that it meets HUD Wind Zone 3 standards. It must be permanently secured to a foundation. So the mobile home, the manufactured home must be sitting on a secured permanent foundation. And those eligibility, the permanent foundation, the requirements for that can be found within the HUD requirements. If you'll notice, I did not mention multifamily or commercial fortified standards. Multifamily or commercial units, those are not eligible for a home designation because they would fall under either the fortified multifamily or the fortified commercial standards, and we're going to touch on those just a little bit here in just a few minutes. Foundation type is also key to the eligibility. If the home is on a dry stack foundation, it is not eligible. A dry stack foundation is gonna be any unrestrained stacked masonry or stone. Those are again not eligible. And if the mobile home or manufactured home is not secured to a permanent foundation that meets the HUD code manufactured home foundation requirements. So that was what wasn't. What foundations did not qualify? Let's talk about the ones that do. We've got a solid foundation, again, is essential because it provides two primary functions for the home. It uniformly distributes the weight among the load-bearing walls to the ground underneath, and it prevents moisture and groundwater from entering the home. So slab on grade, homes with elevated floors, not slab on grade, that have a positive connection from the floor or the wall structure to the supporting foundation, including homes with crawl spaces, stem walls, post and beam or pylons. And then again, keep in mind that HUD manufactured. The other piece that would disqualify a home for designation is going to be the structural members of the roof, such as the trusses and rafters. They have to be a minimum 2-inch nominal thickness, the lumber that is used. They must be spaced no more than 24 inches on center. They have to be sheathed with a wood structural panel, such as plywood or OSB. Be designed by a professional engineer to support all gravity and wind loads corresponding with the site design. These two things that would make a home ineligible. How would you know about that if we hadn't talked about it today? Well, that's where the fortified evaluator comes into play. That evaluator, before the process starts, that evaluator is a third-party individual who has been trained by IBHS. So they've been through the proper classes and taken the proper test. They have verified their insurance and all of those things. They go through that training process. The evaluator is the first person that should get involved in the process of getting a designation. So they're going to come out and do what's called a pre-inspection. They come out, they check out the foundation. They're going to look inside the attic to make sure that the spacing and the thickness of the lumber that's up there is correct, that the roof deck is the right thickness, all of the things. They're going to double check it and say, yes, this home is eligible, or no, this home is not eligible, but here are the things that need to be done to get that home eligible. The designation process involves these 5 key steps that we're going to talk about now. Getting that evaluator involved is again, from the beginning, is very important, and having that evaluator involved the entire time is also important. The homeowner should contact the evaluator before the project begins. Once the eligibility has been determined, the builder or the retrofit process for the home would then start. The roofer and contractor, they're going to have to communicate very clearly and accurately with the evaluator, because a lot of these things happen in a small window of time. So you don't want to slow down the process of the roof or the build of the house. So the evaluator knowing what the schedule is and being included in that is key to making it as smooth as possible. Once the evaluator and the project is complete, the evaluator has gathered all the documentation that is required. A verification process starts. The fortified evaluator takes that information. They submit it over to IBHS, the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, who then has another set of eyes that looks at it and says, yes, we've got all the proof we need to know that this home has a fortified roof on it, that this home meets the fortified standards, the products that were used were accurate, all of those things. And then a designation certificate is given to the evaluator, who then in turn gives it to the homeowner. So when the evaluator is going through this process, they're taking photos of the materials, they're taking photos of the construction practice. They are laying out tape measures to make sure that that nailing pattern is accurate to what the standards are. They're gathering test reports or manufacturer documentation to put into your file. And they're also gathering any compliance forms that need to be signed by an engineer, by the roofer, by the contractor. They're gathering all that up to submit it over to get the actual certificate. Here's kind of a quick look at what the certificate looks like. That certificate is tied to the address of the home, not to the homeowner. So if you get a fortified roof or you build a fortified gold home, then you decide to sell your home in 2 years, that certificate stays with the home, which then allows that new homeowner to potentially get the discount off of their insurance policy because of that roof. Study by the University of Alabama indicated that up to 7% increase in the value of a home because of the designation of fortified. It's valid for 5 years. At the end of that 5-year time, a redesignation can be given to the home. What happens there is the homeowner is reminded by a postcard sent from IBHS to the homeowner. They reach out to an evaluator who comes out, takes some pictures. Most of the time, it's just as simple as taking some pictures from the outside to make sure that nothing has changed to make the home not eligible to be designated, or that no additions have been made to the home, and that the shingles themselves have at least 5 years worth of life left on them. Couple of things could make the house not eligible for redesignation. Construction that is done without an evaluator. If there's any kind of construction done, adding porches, carports, enclosing them, evaluator needs to be involved. Re-roofing or repairing the roof without an evaluator, that could make it ineligible. Putting solar panels on without the evaluator also make it ineligible. If doors or windows are replaced, that potentially could make it ineligible. Now, all of these things can be done. The key is, just like with the wildfire, making sure that the homeowner is aware that they need to do these certain things to keep the designation. If the homeowner puts a solar panels on their home, that's okay. They just need to have someone double check that they're being installed properly. Depending on how you do it, adding a doggy door could also cause you problems with a redesignation. The ideal candidates to be an evaluator: licensed contractors, home builders, roofers, home inspectors, HERS raters, anyone, former insurance adjusters. Any of those folks are good candidates to be a fortified evaluator. Licensed contractors, home builders, and roofers, though anyone who does that for a living, they are good candidates to put on a fortified roof or build a fortified home. We can talk more in detail if any of you have any questions and want to maybe either yourself or someone that you know start them down the process to be an evaluator or to be a fortified roofer or professional. We can walk through that process together at a later time if you would like that. To be qualified for any of those certifications, you got the professional training, carry a minimum amount of insurance. For the evaluator part, as of today, you have to complete the training and pass the exam. In November of this year, the IBHS standards are changing. They have included into those standards that a roofer or professional is going to have taken the training and pass the exam. Today, anyone can do the roof without having the training, but again, that changes in November 1st of this year. Just an example of some of the requirements to get yourself the professional experience requirements. Most of these are going to have a minimum of 5 years. Certified license, registered general contractor, unlicensed residential or general contractor, licensed architects, engineers, ICC code, certified building code, residential code, home inspectors, again, and anyone who has worked with a fortified home evaluator for at least 1 year and has done over 100 designations could also have the professional experience. And then the energy raters. Quick snapshot of the insurance that must be carried. Most people who have one of those businesses are already going to have this, but all of this information is located on the Fortified website. The Fortified website is fortifiedhome.org. In the upper right hand corner, if you are looking for a professional or you are looking for an evaluator, by going to that link, clicking on that link, it is going to bring you to a list that is maintained by internally by IBHS. You can also find that link on smarthomeamerica.org on our website. Notice just to the left of that, there's a professional resources tab. That professional resources tab is also going to give you all of the coursework, all of the training, all of the standards themselves. If you wanted to read it in detail, all of the standards, you can absolutely go to their website and do that. Next to that is that homeowners resources. And that's just more general information for someone who wants to learn a little bit more about Fortified, but not necessarily go into the 12 inches on center spacing of nails. The Fortified standards can be found on that page. And then the Fortified online training can also be found through a link on that page. Very briefly, because we are getting close to our time here, very briefly, the Fortified commercial and the Fortified multifamily, those are also standards in the Fortified suite. Brooke showed you this photo a little bit earlier. These fell under those standards of construction. It was not the standards that we talked through, although the standards are a lot alike to what we talked about. But with a Fortified commercial multifamily, there's only the high wind standard, and it is addressing the roof as far as keeping the water out and the roof on. With a Fortified commercial, you're looking at also addressing any of the roof mounted equipment. The silver is going to be the building envelope, which are going to be the walls, windows, doors, whether it be personal or a large commercial door, that's going to be addressed at the silver level. With the Fortified commercial, it also addresses electrical connections for backup power. And then with the gold, we're looking at the structural load path, which is the roof to the wall connections and the floor to floor load transfer of that building. With the Fortified commercial, you're looking at the structure has to have on-site backup power for critical utilities. The evaluation process is a little bit different with a commercial or multifamily. The first thing you do is you submit an application through IBHS's website to make sure that the development is eligible. Your plans are uploaded, you answer some questions, and then from there you're going to work directly with an IBHS authorized multifamily evaluator to document everything along the way. There are 2 firms that are the ones who take care of the multifamily and commercial evaluations, and IBHS will help you in the process of getting one of those 2 on board. And then at the end of it, you're issued that Fortified certificate. So that brings us to our thank you slide. Thanks everybody for taking the time to listen and stay with us. If you would like to scan the QR code that is on the screen, that is going to give you access to some resources from from our training. Again, thank you for your time and listening. I am more than happy to answer any questions that came up along the way. I'm sure that Graham, knowing him, I'm sure that he did a great job of answering most of them, if not all. But do we have any questions that I can answer for you before we finish up here?
Excellent. Thank you again, Candace. So we'll put that out again. Feel free to use that Q&A feature there. Otherwise, there is also the raise hand option if you want to raise your hand, and we can try to unmute you and you can ask your question to Candace or Brooke as we go. I do see a couple that were asked and Graham answered those. But certainly we have a few minutes left for additional questions if there are more of those.
Absolutely.
Candace, this is Graham. I just the last question we received about can condos be fortified? I just want to maybe take a few minutes and clarify um, between condos and then if something's like if a development's being built as a rental, even though they're single family homes, you may have to build them to the fortified multifamily standard because it will be under a commercial insurance policy. I don't know if you want to add anything to what I tried to answer there in the chat.
So I didn't see your answer in the chat, but what I'll add to that, and I'm assuming you said, you've got to kind of look at the way the structure is, the condo, the townhouse, the way it is built. If everything is under one roof, then it is possible to get a designation. You're just going to need to be sure that the entire roof is done. So it's not impossible to do. It just needs to be, there's several pieces there that need to come into play like that, making sure that the entire thing is done correctly and meets the fortified standards.
All right. I don't see anything else coming in. Certainly want to encourage folks, if questions do pop up, if you want to engage with us more on these topics, certainly feel free to reach out to any of us. You can reach out to me at NCST. You can find our information at ncst.org, and I can forward your information to the subject matter experts, which are here with us. As a reminder, we will be posting the content, the recording and the slides for this webinar, as well as those other weather resilient webinars we've done over the past month on our website. Those will be up probably in the next couple days, certainly within the next week or so, ncst.org. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. Candace, Brooke, and Graham, thank you as always. Always good stuff to hear. And have a great rest of your afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for letting us share.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.